Hello,
Or
everyone, and welcome back into Data Center Frontier. We're here today with Bill Kleyman. He is CEO of Apollo. He's also contributing editor for Data Center Frontier. Hey, Bill, thanks for joining us again.
it is an absolute pleasure to be here, Matt Vincent, with the amazing squad here at Endeavor Business Media. It's not the squad; it's just you and me. You are like a fresh lemonade, ice cold on a very hot Chicago day. And I'll tell you what, it's been real warm. And for our European friends that are listening to this as well, we know it's been warm out there as well. Matt, thank you so much for having me on again. It's always fun to chat with you.
You are very welcome. Thrilled to have you here. And of course, the reason for this video today is we're here to talk about the Data Center Frontier Trends Summit 2026, which is just right around the corner, happening again in Reston, Virginia from August 4 through 6. Bill, you've helped to curate the program again this year. You're gonna be there. We're gonna be there. Um, I just can't wait for the Trend Summit. This industry has really made, no pun intended, a quantum shift, even I would say over the last 12 to 18 months. Last year at the Trend Summit, we were talking quite a lot about projects, future scope. This year, it's been an execution focus all across the industry. How will we actually build, power, and deploy and operate the emerging generation of AI infrastructure. Bill, what do you have to say about this execution era concept? About we've shifted from announcements to real world delivery and operations in this industry.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people. On my board, I'm honored to have Peter Gross, and he's a legend, a staple in this industry. And he's always said that the data center industry loves innovation as long as it's 10 years old, right? But you blink and 10 months goes by. Um, so many people are not used to this pace of change, right? So in 2024 and much of 2025, honestly, the conversation was still about the AI potential, right? The proverbial dam of ChatGPT has burst open, models, co-pilots, automation, GPU access, enterprise experimentation. But you nailed it, man. And everybody listening, like all of us are users of generative AI now, right? And over the past 12 to 18 months, that center of gravity has moved to whether we can physically deliver the actual infrastructure to support all of this. Um, we've got crazy metrics coming out and saying that, our industry is going to consume 15, 17, 20% of electricity just from the AI era, right? We're seeing how hundreds of terawatt hours are going to be used specifically around AI optimized servers. The biggest shift right now that we're experiencing, that we're certainly seeing in the industry, is the conversation has matured. We went from this potential to how do we execute, how do we build the capacity, most of all, how do we power and how do we cool it, and then how do we deploy it with a very deep operational understanding around responsibility. And that is, I know I'm on the high horse. I'll get off my stool here in just a second, but please understand, arguably one of the most, in the past 12 to 18 months, we learned this very intimately. The most challenging, disruptive force has been the community, right? And that is not a bad thing, right? And the biggest challenge that I've heard is, Bill, it's not that we don't want them built, is that we don't want them built this way. And the biggest part of our understanding over the past 12 to 18 months is, what does this way look like? We now have 18 states out of 50 that have some kind of moratorium or legislative delay. We have now crossed the 160 billion, that's with a B mark, as far as projects that are canceled or postponed. And obviously, you and I are going to be in Reston, Virginia. You and I know what happened with that 2,100-acre site up in
Oh yeah,
Virginia.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's all we're
Yeah.
reading
And
about this week. Yep.
it's what I'm reading about this week, too. And I think the message here is that, look, we had two of the biggest players pull out of this thing, right? Where QTS was left hanging with the weight of this entire facility, this entire campus, right? And I get it. It was people who were against this facility for very specific reasons. I understand them. And as a result, it's not happening anymore. And that is an extraordinary metric. So over the past 12 to 18 months, there's absolutely the physical understanding of what this type of massively accelerated architecture looks like, 5, 10 kW per rack. Forget it, like 100 plus all of a sudden. But now coupled with this challenge that we're experiencing with the communities, and two very separate fears. One around AI, like, is it going to take my job? Is this going to be Terminator? And the other one around physical infrastructure, that are being clumped together, right? We
Yeah.
are sometimes playing from 40 points behind. The past 12 to 18 months has been a masterclass in how we as an industry are reevaluating physical infrastructure, but also our engagement with communities.
Yeah, well, I've got two responses to that. Number one, the earning the social license aspect is definitely been really probably the story of the year in the industry. It's what we can't stop talking about at events on top of the business and technology stuff. And, we've got a discussion for that at the Trends Summit. It's actually the closing discussion on Thursday. It's actually called Earning the Social License. And Buddy Reiser, probably needs no introduction for this audience, but Executive Director, Loudoun County Economic Development, is going to be leading this panel. Stan Blackwell from Dominion Energy is going to be on this panel to offer a perspective. Dominion, of course, has been in the news this year. And then, and we're going to have professionals from Cologix and Vantage Data Centers on that panel, as well as Nomad Futurist founders Nabil Mahmood and Phil Koblenz. So we are looking forward to a really searching and instructive, hopefully, discussion in terms of the climate for social and community. On the technology and business side, what you mentioned the rack densities. One of the things in this AI execution era that I think is remarkable is how everything is sort of interconnected: power, cooling, networking, construction, supply chains, operations, community exception. This is becoming an integrated challenge in this industry now. For developers going forward, they almost need to keep all of that in their viewfinder. What do you think of that contention?
I really agree with you. It's been an extraordinary challenge to sort of wrap your head around what physical infrastructure looks like right now. And I remember last year I was on the keynote stage with Ken Patchett, right? And we were talking about rack density, right? And I don't want to harp too much on this, because everyone knows, you go on your favorite search engine, you can ask and read about, rack density and whatnot. But on the stage, Ken was like, in 1988, the average rack density of a Microsoft facility was 1 kilowatt. 1 kilowatt per rack. I mean, listen, everybody, you could cool that with a Walmart box fan and build Kleyman optimism. You're fine, right? But like fast forward to today, and you're seeing, Vertiv and Schneider get up on stage talking about 800 volt DC systems. You're seeing, easily 100 plus kW designs coming online. In the AFCOM State of the Data Center report this year, we saw a 70% jump year over year in rack density to 27 kW per rack. Now, this is in our report encompassing small, tiny facilities as well as larger ones as well. And for the first time, we officially have a liquid cooling threshold, right, of 50 kW or more. At that point, we're going to start at, looking at single phase, two phase, rear door heat exchangers, pump refrigerant, something along those lines, to dissipate this mechanical heat from this equipment. Because I'm not saying airflow is going away, but we're starting to hit those limits. The challenge is the exponential step change that we have to sort of get comfortable with. But also, Matt, you nailed it. The environment to support the things that we're building is changing as well. I'm going to give you a very specific example. Recently, Modine Technologies, and they're the ones that are responsible for the Airedale, air handlers, the big cooling units, right? They got a $4 billion investment. And here's the thing: you and I are used to, power purchasing agreements, purchasing power, land, substations ahead of time. For the first time in our industry, everybody, like, somebody was pre-purchasing cooling capacity. Not just that, forking over $165 million to expand manufacturing capacity for this one manufacturer. That's not typical procurement conversation. It's not. We've never seen this happen before. So you're now working in an ecosystem that is, buying cooling capacity, power capacity. What's next effectively, right? The
Yeah.
way that we measure and understand these critical parts of our environment is fundamentally changing. And I think it's going back to what we talked about earlier. It's being a little bit uncomfortable with all of this change, but also, trying to make sure you push ahead and be brave.
Yeah,
Power and bravery is what you need to be successful right now.
that's exactly right. The immortal, we should put that on a t-shirt or a bumper sticker for data center professional mobiles. But as a bookend to that story, right? The same theme is the Ecolab Cool IT merger. It's like here's a mega vendor now. Putting it all of their capabilities into this same dynamic that you're describing. Well, to get just a little bit more down on my list of talking points here about the Data Center Frontier Trends Summit, which of course is August 4th through 6th. And if those of you watching or listening go to the Data Center Frontier website, right at the very top underneath the logo is a link to register for the DCF Trends Summit. The show sold out last year, so we're getting close. So if you'd like to attend, you might want to check that registration page out. But I just wanted to tick off some of the keynote highlights and the session highlights for this year event. Of course, the opening keynote this year, we're so excited. Your great friend and mine and mentor, Rich Miller, is going to be returning to the Trends Summit stage. Rich, of course, is the founder of Data Center Frontier and Data Center Knowledge, and also he's been doing his own podcast and Substack now, Data Center Richness. Rich is going to be participating in a fireside conversation led by me with Lee Kessler, CEO of EdgeCore Digital Infrastructure, one of the major North American data center operators. Lee Kessler is a true development insider and also on the front lines of data center development. And this session is going to be talking about the new geography of AI in terms of power, land, utilities, and critically speed to market. What do you think of that keynote, Bill?
I I love this keynote, and I think again going back to being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Look, the geography of AI is being rewritten in real time. And that is an intense kind of feeling for, I think, everyone. For the last decade, the data center map was shaded by cloud regions, fiber density, tax incentives, proximity to major enterprise demand. Those still matter, but AI has fundamentally changed their hierarchy. Today, the first question is not, where do we want to build this thing? It's where can we get power, land, utility, alignment with the community support, construction, execution fast enough to meet this AI demand. That's the real shift. So AI is forcing our industry to move from traditional site selection models to what do we call like an infrastructure execution models? I mean, it's such a bigger landscape of what we have to consider. And EdgeCore is a great proof point, right, in discussion because of their public positioning in these explicitly high density single tenant kind of campuses for cloud AI customers, hyperscale types of tenants, right? Um, and what the big theme in the conversation here is that it has created an all new infrastructure geography that we have to navigate. What does that look like? What do we have to consider? What does those hierarchy of demands ultimately look like? And I think the conversation between Rich and Lee and just getting into that power as its site selection anchor and everything else around it, my gosh, we've almost flipped this thing on our head, and it's really important to understand what that landscape, what the geography of data centers looks like right now.
For sure. And then moving down the list of sessions, so much focus in our coverage and in the industry's conversation has been on this notion of an AI factory. I believe the term was coined by NVIDIA. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but beyond the buzzword, we are going to seek to unpack at the Trends Summit, a little beyond the buzzword of AI factory, talking about the integrated systems, automation, digital twins, and really industrial scale infrastructure play. That is going to come to light in the day two keynote, which is with Sean James from NVIDIA, who I know who you know. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more because I saw you speak with him at Data Center World. We're
Mm-hmm.
also going to have Sanjay Gupta from Meta and Rob Coyle. He's on the DCF Trends editorial board. He's the director of technical programming for the Open Compute Project. Rob is going to be a part of this fireside. We're going to be talking about, the method and the means and the process whereby AI factory designs are turning into operational reality. What do you think of that, Bill?
I First of all, I think we need to do a better name than AI factory. There's nothing clean or necessarily like fun around a factory. So we have to like, we already have a challenge with the naming stuff going on in the industry. So let's maybe not call them AI factory, but we'll get there. We'll get there when we get there, right? I think the most important thing to understand at a very high level, right? And you've heard me use this analogy, and for all the people that are listening, I'm so sorry if you're sick of this, but I genuinely believe that we live in a world that's just discovered oil, but hasn't invented the internal combustion engine. We got all this raw material. We're just starting to figure out what to do with it. And I think in that same sense, you've got the people that are digging for the oil, right? That's the Anthropics, the OpenAIs, the SpaceXs, the big ones, big facilities, right? And then you've got the people who are, once the oil is out of the ground, the refineries of the world. That's actually what my company Apollo does, building industrial AI agents and apps. Like, cool, now we got this oil. What do I do with it? And I think back to your framing of this keynote, here's a massive concept that I want everyone to hear directly from Bill Kleyman. AI, no, how do I say this? An AI factory is not just a data center with a GPU in it. It's not, right? It is an integrated production system designed to turn energy, data models, infrastructure into useful AI outputs like tokens, predictions, recommendations, agent actions, right? Simulations, robotic decisions, workflows, industrial automation, and everything else, right? Yeah, I get it. NVIDIA framed the turn an AI factory as a new class of infrastructure. But I think the real framing is how, moving away from this concept of a GPU room, because that's not all this thing is, into more of an industrial production capacity, right? If a traditional data center that you and I grew up with hosts applications, an AI factory manufactures intelligence. That's what this stuff is. And it's an extraordinary moment of a shift away from pizza boxes and email servers and Citrix and VMware to an architecture that has this amazing software factory convergence that's doing something extraordinary, right? So I think that's going to be the big basis of the conversation here is what is an AI factory? Like what goes inside of it? How different or similar is it to traditional infrastructure that we have to look at? And going beyond the buzzword, it's getting thrown around. It's fine, but I think we should be precise. A building is not an AI factory because it's got a GPU. That's not fair, right? That's not how this works. A co-location hall with a high density rack is not automatically an AI factory, right? A GPU cluster is not even automatically an AI factory. A real AI factory has some pretty core characteristics in it. And that's what we're going to probably hear and discuss, right? AI output at scale, the engineering of an integrated system, and then obviously how is it optimized around production metrics. That's how you function and structure a big AI factory, amongst other things. So I'm excited to help or at least hear the difference in what the value, the unit of the value is for an AI factory. I'm excited to hear, what is beyond the actual buzzwords. And I'm excited to go and have the conversation of, all of those design metrics and architectures that are required to build these facilities. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And I mean, and that's why we've got multiple sessions at the Trends Summit dealing with it. We've got another session called One Density Doesn't Fit All, harkening back to our rack density discussion. We're going to hear from experts from AWS, Scott Charter from Oracle, um, Delta Electronics.
That one is so important. That one
Yeah.
is so incredibly important. I'm going to keep this very brief. I've now done, if you go on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see how many videos I've done recently around liquid cooling and different kind of cooling architectures and density. This is such an important concept to understand because I'm talking with so many different folks that are not AI factories, that are not neoclouds. They're traditional co-locations that say we need to start hosting this stuff. How do I do it? I don't want to be an AI factory. I don't want to be an AI factory. I just to put in a couple hundred H100s for my clients or for Bill's AI use cases, right? Where do I start? Why do I even look at this stuff? And one density does not fit all, right? And I think
Yeah.
understanding when do you slap a car radiator to the back of a rack?
Yeah.
When do you start looking at Cool IT or Excelsius or any of these other, Zuda Core, Invent type of architectures, the Motivaires of the world, right? How do I retrofit my architecture to support this level of density? There's different AI workloads performing, operating at different targets with different facility constraints and different economics. There's no question that we are now in an era of high density numbers. Great. Congratulations. There's no argument. But what that looks like in your facility, training, fine tuning, retrieval, recommendation engines, inference, the future of AI infrastructure is not one universal rack density. It's a work aligned infrastructure. And that is why I'm excited for this kind of conversation, because we're going to understand what that work alignment actually means for density.
Totally. I love that phrase. I also want to note that your friend Ken Patchett from Lambda is going to be on this one density fits all panel. I can't wait to hear from Ken
Rightfully
again.
so. We can talk about the 1 kW rack that you used to manage.
Yeah, and we'll have cooling experts aplenty at the Trends Summit on the events. A multi viewpoint cooling panel. We'll have Andrew Whitmore from Motivair also addressing
Oh,
this.
good.
Yeah, and as much as we will be talking about cooling, we'll also be talking about power. In fact, we have a session discussing the contention that power has really become the architecture of the AI power stack when we're talking about generation, storage, distribution, cooling, again, and integrated infrastructure. We're going to have sessions on behind the meter power. I mentioned Stan Blackwell from Dominion is going to be there. We're going to have utility power discussions. I mean, we almost can't. Well, I mean, of course, you know better than anybody. I mean, with Data Center World, power is such a central topic. You had to create a whole separate event to. By the way, when is Data Center World Power this year?
I appreciate the shameless plug. And just for everyone noting this, Endeavor Business Media is actually a media partner on some of our Informer events. So we,
Oh
we
yeah.
love you guys. That's true. And we get a chance to work and partner with you quite a bit. October 11th through, no, my gosh, that's Data Center World Vienna. My head is, I'm going to be at Data Center World Vienna. I just I just gave you an official announcement that nobody else has heard. Bill Kleyman is going to be featured and speaking at Data Center World in Vienna in October 11th. But that's not the one that you're asking. It is Data Center World Power is going to be. Hang on a second. Let's make sure I get the dates right because I've got a lot of events. It is going to be September 21st through the 23rd at the beautiful Gaylord Texan Convention Center out in Dallas,
Oh
Texas.
yeah.
Um, you're not wrong. Power is become literally a part of the infrastructure. I just wrote an article on AFCOM about how these two industries, the Venn diagram is horribly overlapping. I mean, they're literally becoming some of the same industry. And without really getting into too much of the metrics and statistics, right? There's some estimates now that say that our industry is going to consume upwards of 200 gigawatts of power, right, by 2030. And for a lot of people that just heard me say that, they're like, cool, Bill's just throwing out numbers and letters. I'm not, right? 1 gigawatt is for 1 million people. 10 gigawatts is for like a Los Angeles or New York City. And 100 gigawatts is about 10% of all the lights that are currently on in the entire world. Just to put that in a frame of mind, 50 gigawatts is all of California. So when someone comes to me and says that your industry is going to require 200 gigawatts by 2030, my immediate response is like, cool, cool, cool. So you want me to what, build you 4 Californias worth of power? That's what you'd like. It is an Everest type of a challenge, right? Where this literally becomes a major point of an architecture, and easily, the conversation is moved away from how many GPUs can we get, because it doesn't matter anymore if you can't energize them, right? That's the question that becomes one of the most things is which markets are viable, where's capacity coming online, what's cooling, can cooling scale, what is the community around it saying, and will they actually be able to support it, right? The generation part of it is equally as large of a conversation, because holy cow, you ready for this? The data center industry is no longer just a consumer of power. We're a producer. And
Yep.
very, very soon, arguably, we might become one of the largest unregulated utilities in the world, period, because of behind the meter generation, what we're doing with nuclear, with natural gas turbines, and everything else, quite literally in between. It is an extraordinary moment where an AI data center has become an energy development project. That's it. Like that's the wild situation. It's no longer just like, hey, favorite utility, here's how much energy I need, here's some forms that I'll fill out, good for you, right? But that's completely changed. I think the other big part of the conversation is storage now has moved from backup to flexibility, the things that we're seeing with batteries, peak shaving, grid services, microgrids, backup transitioning. The power industry in terms of how we work with data centers has shifted so much, everybody, that it's first of all, it's fun. In case you can't tell, I'm really passionate about this and I love change and I think it's fascinating, but like 800-volt DC, bringing DC into the actual rack, which is just wild as a concept because of density, better efficiency, solid state transformers. Those are so cool. I cannot wait to see those simplified designs, right? Impacts on supply chains. My God, I could keep going on this. Easily one of the most important topics in this entire thing.
It's such a huge conversation, and thank you for mentioning all those facets of the conversation. Just want to tick off a couple other highlights from the Trends Summit coming up August 4 through 6 in Reston. We're going to have a couple of fascinating. Well, we're going to have a couple of talks on supply chain with data center professionals, and also talking to experts from CargoSense and Unilog. We're going to have panels on the new site selection stack. Our friend David McCall from QTS is going to be on that panel with Bob Kinshirf from Constellation, representatives from DLA Piper and Dart Points as sort of a in the pod with that discussion is a really fascinating session with experts from data center operators, Applied Digital, CleanArc, Provident, C Square. This panel is going to be called "Why Some Projects Get Built, Why Others Don't." It's going to be led by JLL's great data center expert, VP Sean Farney. And then finally, we're going to have an investment panel, investment reality check, talking to, I think Phil Lawson Shanks from Aligned Data Centers is on that panel. Also, experts from Flexential, Soluna to get that distributed energy perspective. Valor C3 and Hunter Newby is going to be on the panel. So I know I've just thrown, a trifecta of concerns at you here, but we're just trying to get at what the Trend Summit covers. Any thoughts on
Oh,
this?
there's going to be a tremendous amount, and thank you for doing such a great job sort of covering some of these important ones. I mean, look, supply chain is going to be really important. I really can't even stress this one enough. I think in the last AFCOM State of the Data Center report, something like 66% of our respondents came back with serious supply chain concerns and constraints, of whom 15% experienced an outage in their facility because they weren't able to get a part or component. The supply chain conversation right now has really demonstrated a couple of really important things for us. First of all, it demonstrated the fragility of the system. It really did, right? And I had a partner that we couldn't deploy because we didn't have a busway or like a specific piece of electrical equipment. It's literally like having a beautiful Lamborghini without a spark plug. One spark plug, right? And that's a very frustrating situation to be in. The weakest link may not be the most expensive component. That's the really most important thing people need to start to think about. A $500,000 component or less can delay a deployment of multi-billion-dollar facility. So I think supply chain is going to be a really, really important thing to sort of think about. And then as far as like why some projects get built, right? The market is full of announcements, gigawatts, billion-dollar campuses, but the market is learning a very hard truth. Ready for this? Announced megawatts are not the same as energized megawatts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we're going to have to get real comfortable with that real fast, right? Because soon we're going to see how many people announce stuff versus how many people actually built stuff. Right. And a project only becomes real when land, power, utility alignment, permits, equipment, construction, financing, customers, cooling, all of the community, all support that convergence, right? So, in AI infrastructure, the winners are not the companies that announce the most capacity. They're not. In fact, that's become one of my filters when I read some of this stuff. They're the companies that can convert intent into energized, commissioned, revenue producing actual capacity. And that's who I actually started to look at even more closely. So when we start to say like, some projects could get built because they're sites, it's the executable infrastructure layer, the platform that we're going to try and talk about. And that means real land control, right? Real power paths to production and energization, real community engagement and customer demand. And you got Sean Farney, JLL's outlook in itself, right? They're talking about nearly 100 gigawatt of new data centers production that's expected between 2026 and 2030. That's a ridiculous number, right? But the warning is power, like power, construction, supply chain constraints. Those are very real challenges. So my thing with what you're talking about, like, is this thing can actually get built? keep an eye on the announcements versus boots on the ground, shovels in the sand or in the dirt. Like that's the real differentiator. Power separates real ones, real projects from speculative ones.
That's absolutely right. And that's why we have data center operators, like I mentioned, Applied Digital, Crusoe, at the Trends Summit. You're going to hear from these companies that are on the front lines of the frontier, actually executing, actually building. If there was a bubble, it might have been in announcements. But let's talk about, as we will at the Trend Summit, the execution and deliveries. So, well, Bill, I don't want to bend your ear all afternoon here. It's been a pretty long video, but we had to go this long just to even scratch the surface of all the uh, really vital industry conversations that are on deck for the Trend Summit this year. There's never been a moment like this in this industry. I feel like I can safely say that. I think, at the end of 3 years now since, this boom of digital infrastructure and AI started, I mean, it's uncharted territory. But with a lot of expertise and experience from, the some of the smartest people in the world who work in this industry driving it. So I will give you the final words here, Bill, on this year's Trend Summit.
I appreciate you a million, and I appreciate this conversation and everything that you're doing. I've been in this industry for a while, 20 plus years. In 2005, I entered in this space. We're 21 years now, right? And I can honestly say that the past 24 months has probably exceeded my past 20 years, my 2 decades of experience in this
I've heard you
industry.
say that. That's why I
Yeah,
can say confidently what I just said. Sorry.
no, man. I agree with you 100%. Right. It's been very interesting to see this, and I attend so many conferences and I write a lot, and I'm lucky to have an engineering background to keep my finger on the pulse of this industry, and it has been incredible. And I can tell you that the AI infrastructure race is moving from announcements to accountability. And it goes back to your very first question, Matt, of what you asked for the past 12 to 18 months. The market does not need more theoretical capacity. And that's going to be my strong statement to sort of go into this event. It needs energized capacity, commissioned capacity, operational capacity, right? The projects that are going to win are going to be the ones that align power, capital, utility, supply chain, construction, cooling operations, and the community trust into something real. And that's the new standard, right? Not who can announce the most, but who can build, power, cool, deploy, and operate infrastructure at scale. And that's going to be the big theme at Data Center Frontier Trend Summit this year in August, is going to be this practical, real, can I touch it, can I feel it type of application of AI in the data center space. And I'm excited to go from that announcement to the accountability to the practicality side of the conversation.
Absolutely, Bill. Um, can't wait to see you in August, and can't wait to see all of you out there if you are watching. I hope, Bill and I hope that you will join us at the Trend Summit and be a part of this amazing conversation currently taking place in the data center, digital infrastructure, and AI spaces. So thanks again, Bill. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Matt. Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next time at Data Center Frontier.